Working through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Tables turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keeps dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What is going on, people? We're back again. G, you know what time it is. You know what it is, guys. Smash that like button if you're liking the content. Smash that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. And we're here again for another summer transfer target. Obviously, we've spoken about quite a few players already. Make sure you guys are commenting in all the videos as to whether or not you like the players that I'm talking about. You think, nope, they're rubbish, or you know, you've got an alternative. You know, you never know. Heck, your alternative might be a lot better. And obviously, as the summer kind of goes on and as the days go on, you know, we're going to be linked with certain players. Certain other players actually going to be a lot more obtainable, so to speak. So you know, there's going to be ones that are going to be added. Obviously, some of these might have been taken away by the time, you know, the videos come out. You know, they might have already joined their clubs or looking to join clubs, so to speak. So everything could potentially change, but hopefully, you know, we're taking a look at some of these players. Liverpool, give me a call if you do need someone, you know, to be a scout watch or anything like that. You know, I feel like I'd be doing a good job, but obviously I digress. Let's get into it. Today, we're here to take a look at Tyler Adams. Now, if you've watched the Jerry James show, you already know myself and Jerry, we've spoken about that USA midfield. So there was Tyler Adams, Yunus Musa, currently playing for Valencia, and then Weston McKennie, who is currently playing for Leeds United at the time of this video. But I don't know what his situation is looking like come the end of the season. But the one out of the three that I like Yunus Musa, but I think the one out of the three that would make sense for us at this current moment in time is Tyler Adams. Now, the reason why I like Tyler Adams is obviously Liverpool, in my opinion, should be looking for a new six. As I've mentioned 100 times before, I don't see Jurgen Klopp selling Fabinho. Now, if he isn't going to sell Fabinho, that means you either need to get in a six who is literally way better than Fabinho in whatever aspects you need them to be better than him at. So whether that is you want a ball-winning midfielder, so like, you know, Ugarte was one player that a lot of people have spoken about. If he's the one, then you need to just go for someone like him. But if not, then I'm looking at that position because I think that Fabinho will actually start the season next season. And I think Klopp will trust him with that. I'm then looking potentially at rotation options. Do you know what I mean? Where a player I still think is good enough to play for the team, but might not usurp the current starter at this moment in time, kind of thing. Now, there's other players who I would prefer. So I would be looking like, I don't know, a Kimmich, for example, but I don't see that as a realistic signing for Liverpool. I think he'd be wanting to go to a different type of team, you know, like a Man City or, you know, something of that kind of ilk. If he were to leave, obviously, Bayern Munich, and he's at Bayern Munich anyway. So, you know, the likelihood of that, I feel, is quite small. When I think of a Tyler Adams, I just think to myself, I feel like he embodies everything that we would need in that sixth position. He might not be the star name. You know, I know people have only watched 2 games of Ugarte, the 2 games against Arsenal, but they seem to think that he is obviously the one. Fair dues, fair enough. It is what it is. Other players I think people have spoken about in that Portuguese league, I think, is Florentino Luis, another defensive midfielder. He looks decent as well. He does look decent. I haven't really delved into him too much, so I won't speak on him. But from what the people who have watched him once or twice, they tell me that, you know, he's another good player. And obviously, you know, you got your Kones and stuff like that. Again, it's just really, for me, I always think of it like how many matches, or even if you haven't watched matches, because obviously I don't think that Portuguese football is on in the UK, but just how many times have you seen this player play? Have you seen them play in bad games? Have you seen them play good games? Like what are they like? And I think that's where sometimes the fan base, we go a little bit OTT with certain players, and then when we don't sign them, we're all crying wolf and like, oh my goodness, why didn't we go in for this guy? Or why didn't we sign that guy? And we should be doing this, and you know, we should be doing that. Excuse me. So it's like when we're looking at certain players, sometimes I just think and it's something I mentioned in my Liverpool improvements video. The exit strategy was like, it's all about the right profile. Klopp has obviously shown that he don't necessarily need the best of the best to necessarily come in. He can kind of work with what some people would call scruff. So your Wijnaldums, your Robertsons, people like that, where your Hendersons, the ones where they're not really, most top teams probably wouldn't take these guys, if I'm being totally honest with you. Like, let's be real. But Jurgen Klopp is able to take these guys, and for what he's done, obviously, during his time here, he's able to turn them into, decent enough players to enable us to win things. And I look at someone like, Tyler Adams, and I think to myself, I feel like he'd fall into that kind of bracket. Do you know what I mean? But I also think he is generally, a good player in a general sense. Now, looking here, let me take this banner off. Looking here, I've highlighted a few bits and bobs. So this is Tyler Adams' like statistics, or like some of the metrics that they've got here. So you see here, tackles obviously ranks in the 98th percentile, blocks 97, interceptions 81. Pass completion, he only ranks in the 52 percentile, but he's got an 82.5%, per 90 pass rate, which is really, really good. And he attempts 56 passes, a game. So I'm looking at that straight away, and I'm like, okay, say no more. Again, now let's compare that to Fabinho. So again, tackles, Fabinho is ranked in the 56th percentile. Tyler Adams is ranked in the 98th. That's for tackles. You look at interceptions, Fabinho is obviously ranked in the 68th percentile. Tyler Adams, 81. So again, I'm looking at those kind of things, and I'm like, again, passes attempted and completed, I think they both are higher, than Tyler Adams. But you think about the team that he's playing in, Liverpool, a team that are going to dominate possession in most games, with how teams come out against Liverpool, especially as well. I expect that anyway. So, but when I'm looking at some of the other things, so, the tackles, the interceptions, the blocks and stuff like that, yes, still relative to the sheer fact that they do play for different teams. So Tyler Adams being ranked in the 98th percentile, obviously I'd still expect it to kind of be a little bit higher than in Liverpool, because of how dominant Liverpool are, but not so high that you're only ranked in the 56th percentile. Do you know what I mean? Some of that clearly, and majority of that is more just due to the fact that you're just not making, that many tackles, in games. Interceptions, again, you're not making as many interceptions as you probably should be, because these numbers, when we look at other top defensive midfielders, who are ball-winning midfielders anyway, their numbers are a lot higher. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as I like to say. But in some of those metrics, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Tyler Adams would be a good option. Again, when we're looking at summer transfer targets, we all know you've got your favorites, you've got the ones that you're like, I want this guy, boom, 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 boom. But then also you need to think about, or if I can't get the main guy, who would I still be happy with, that even if the team got him in, I could work with this. But I could work with it to the point where, you know what, I'm not even mad at this. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like he falls, into that kind of bracket. Looking here, this is obviously the statistics from both players this season, both Tyler Adams and Fabinho. You can see less fouls conceded by Tyler Adams, which is really, really good. And to be honest, after watching Fabinho, you can see, because Fabinho was it's like he was just a yard off pace all the time. So when I'm looking at that, I'm like, yeah, you see, now I can see why that yours is a lot higher than a Tyler Adams, purely because this season you just weren't really active. Whereas when I'm watching Tyler Adams play, again, in that Leeds side, not a good side in terms of overall this season, obviously been relegated as well. I'm looking at all of these things and I'm like, some of these numbers are really, really good. And then it's just about which statistics you kind of, want to throw up, to be honest with you. Obviously passing, as I said, it's going to be higher. Fabinho is still good at the end of the day. 88% is still nothing to balk at, and a 56%, which is higher than Tyler Adams. Again, nothing to balk at in terms of, I'm not dismissing the fact that he's got an 88.58% pass accuracy, because that's really, really good. But the fact that Tyler Adams is only on 82% in a team that I wouldn't consider to be a team that keep the ball that well, not too bad. Not too bad. Ball recoveries, 199 to Fabinho's 178. Chances created 24 to Fabinho's 16. You know, Tyler Adams is someone who's a bit of a box to box type of guy. He is that kind of player. Now, obviously, these statistics are taken prior to the actual last game of the season. I believe. I think I done it on game week 37. So some of these numbers might be higher, some of these might be lower. I don't think they're going to change too much. To be honest with you, I can't see. Yeah, maybe, let's put it this way: unless Tyler Adams didn't play that last game in terms of the ball recoveries, yeah, that number will probably be higher than 199, and I don't feel like Fabinho, would have increased that much in the game. Passes attempted, of course, Fabinho is going to come out on top. So you can see straight away when we're looking at the type of player, they're quite similar in some of the metrics anyway, when we're looking just purely at a metric standpoint. But when you're thinking about the teams that they play for, also having watched Tyler Adams this season, watched him obviously during the World Cup as well, I am thoroughly impressed, with the player. Looking here, obviously aerial duels, Fabinho is obviously coming out on top in terms of contested, but the success rate, I mean, he's 9 off the contested, and his success rate is a little bit off Tyler Adams, but we'll call that almost equal. And then, yeah, as I said, the passes by Fabinho, are going to absolutely dwarf anything that Tyler Adams is going to do. So looking at that again, Leeds have just been relegated to the Championship. They're not going to be able to keep all of these players. So there's going to be quite a few players, I think, anyway. And I unless, Tyler Adams might be that type of guy, but I don't see him wanting to stay at the football club playing in the Championship, especially when he's a USA international and stuff like that. And he's one of their main players in that team. And most of especially their good players in the USA team, they're all playing at a higher level than the Championship. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, I can't see why not. Do you know what I mean? I really can't see why not. This is obviously the positions that he's played throughout his career. So playing for, I think it was Leipzig, Salzburg, or in that Red Bull kind of army, that gang there. I don't know why I keep calling it a gang, because it's really not a gang, but you know what I mean. The Red Bull organization. He's played 150 games in defensive midfield, played 26 games at right midfield, which is quite interesting, 17 at right back, 4 at central midfield, left back, and centre back. So let's take out the centre back, left back, and left midfield. Pretty good that, he's played obviously central midfield, right back. He's played 17 times there. So, again, having that versatility, right midfield, he's played even more times. He played 26 times, and obviously defensive midfield, but the right back and the right midfield, it was the ones that kind of intrigued me the most, because I was a bit like, I didn't really expect that, to be honest with you. Having not really watched him like that before this season, and anytime I had seen him, really was for the USA, and I always saw him in central positions, knowing that he can play in these other positions, and he has actually played there more than a couple of times, other than the left back and centre back roles. I'm like, okay, cool. Again, versatility. And we already know, and I keep saying it, we already know when it comes to Jurgen Klopp and the versatility in the team, man. He needs that. Do you know what I mean? He needs players to play in more than one position, unless it's a Van Dijk. Do you know what I mean? Like, where he can only play in that one position and that one position only. Don't even try and attempt to put him anywhere else, because it just won't really work. But also because they're so good in those kind of positions. Fabinho was really, really good, obviously, a couple of seasons ago, or maybe 3 seasons ago, potentially. But these last 2 seasons, I would say, Fabinho has just been kind of going that way, which is weird, because when Fabinho was obviously signed, then obviously Man City then went on to then sign Rodri. It was like everyone kept asking, Rodri or Fabinho, but then Rodri's just done this. He's literally just gone up, whereas Fabinho's just going down, and you're just like, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird between the 2 players. But again, ultimately, it would then depend on how you kind of see it. Is this just a one-off, for Fabinho? Will he be able to come back? I don't know. But again, looking again at Tyler Adams, if we look at his heat map for the season, as I say, in these central areas, he'd be a good 6, man. I think he'd be a good 6. And because of the way that Liverpool play, he'd be a comfortable 6 in there. Do you know what I mean? He'd be a player that I feel would be able to slot in. He'd be a player that is already experienced both internationally and at club level. He'd be someone I think wouldn't be overawed with the occasion of joining a Liverpool football club. And I feel like he fits that right profile. I don't know, obviously, what the fee would be for someone like him, but I'm not looking at none of the statistics, watching him play, highlights, whatever. I'm not even the sheer fact that Leeds got relegated this season. I'm not looking at any of that and thinking to myself, yeah, not really the guy for me. I'm seriously looking at him and I'm thinking he's a very, very good player. He's just playing in a really, really crap team. And I think if you move to someone like a Liverpool, again, I'm going off the basis that Fabinho stays. He's going to start next season. We might not be able to we ain't got the money really to potentially spend to go out and sign certain players. So we need to be a bit more smarter with some of the deals. And again, he's not my top transfer target or anything like that, but he's definitely a name I think, should be put in the hat at the bare minimum. I think most would agree he should at least be considered. Do you know what I mean? Especially if we can't go out and we're not going to sign your Agates and, Caicedos. Like if we don't sign any of those type of guys, then I can't see why looking at someone like a Tyler Adams, wouldn't be a really good fit. You look here, obviously this is his heat map for the game against England at the World Cup. Him, Musa and Weston McKennie absolutely bossed, in my opinion, that England midfield. I was very, very impressed with the work rate, off the ball that they had. All three of them, they were engines in there. Even when the game was getting late on and players were looking like they were getting a bit leggy, Tyler Adams, for me, was one of the ones who was standing out, in that game, marshalling that midfield, making sure the midfield was tight, making sure that the midfield was compact and making sure that the team weren't giving any spaces up. Do you know what I mean? Especially when you've got an England team, we've got the Harry Kanes, they've got the Jude Bellinghams, the Raheem Sterlings, Fodens, Grealish, all of these kind of players, Sakas, they weren't letting up. And they put in such a shift in that game. It was just unfortunate that they weren't able to get themselves a goal. But obviously that was just due more to the attacking front. But when I watched that game, the way he marshaled that midfield, I was so impressed. I was so impressed, with the way that he was playing, in that game. And obviously we can see here him and Weston McKennie both in that defensive midfielder role, if you want to call it deep lying playmaker, whatever kind of role you want to call it, depending on the team. But again, if we're playing with the two, because effectively that's what we might do next season with the whole 3/Trent being inverted, him playing in that defensive midfielder role, I wouldn't mind having a Tyler Adams, someone who's effectively going to mop everything up for you and allow you, Trent, to just do what you want to do in that midfield, which is just play football. Don't worry really about the defensive side, because I feel Tyler Adams can play also in a pivot by himself, which would give Trent even more license to kind of do what he needs to do. Not to say that he needs to negate his defensive duties, but just more to say, yeah, you know what? It wouldn't be too much of a problem, in order for you to do that. So again, I think Tyler Adams, would be a good player, to have in that midfield. This is obviously the game against England, and I don't see there being too much of an issue with signing someone, like that. Someone who I feel would be comfortable playing in our team. Someone I feel wouldn't necessarily look out of place. At the end of the day, you look at the midfielders that we do currently have. Is he going to be any worse than those guys? Do you know what I mean? I think he would come in and be a very good option for Liverpool. Whether or not then he's good enough to then step into that first team, I think he potentially could. I think it'd be an underrated signing. Anyway, I don't know the fee and I don't know what it would cost to get someone like him. I know obviously with relegation, sometimes you might have something in your contract to say if you get relegated, you can go for this price, that price, etc., etc. But, Tyler Adams for me is definitely a player I think we should just add to our list of transfer targets. Alongside, a host of other players, all the players that we've already been linked to, plus obviously any individual preferences that everybody kind of has. But guys, let me know, what do you guys think? Tyler Adams, is he the one? Is he a player that you wouldn't mind seeing at the football club? I'm not asking him to put him at the top of your to-do list. Do you know what I mean? But I am saying, is he a player that you wouldn't mind seeing at the club? Do you think even if he did join the club, how do you think that would kind of go? What kind of fee do you think we'd get for him? All of these kind of things, let me know in the comment section below. That is today's summer transfer target done. Tyler Adams of Leeds United. Give me a shout, like, share, and subscribe to the video. I'm G, and I am outie peeps.